Every decision is tied to a consequence. It probably behooves us to make quality decisions, especially when it pertains to another human life. So before you tighten the noose and say, there's no way that stupid man is going to see my child, yet he's yearning to. And before you say, me, I just want to make a chick pregnant. Me, I just want to make a chick pregnant. Just pregnant, give her the knee, and then disappear. Maybe you need to think again. Because again, according to science, your presence counts for so much more than your ego. How does the absence of a parent affect a child? Have you ever thought about that? Does it bother you when your colleagues ask from work and they're like, oh, by the way, you normally have kids? And they're like, yeah. Around, I think 5-6 years ago, their mother sent me a picture and they were matching clothes. I think they're fine. They're breathing. Are you like that? Okay. Is that who you are? I love to have these conversations for the simple reasons that, there are aspects and angles that you share that I will never have. And so the credo of Ask Eric is two people, that being you and I, sitting around these and discussing ideas. And just like that, if you share with me your idea and I share with you my idea, we all live with two ideas. Because I came to the conversation with one idea, you came to the conversation with one idea. But when we exchange our ideas, you live with two, I live with two, mine and yours. Okay? So a warm welcome. How is it you think kids are affected by your absentia? Be you a father or a mother, and you're wondering, they'll grow. One day they'll look for me. They look for me. Kids always look for their parents. Is that your motivation to be absent? That's the conversation I want us to have. Of course, no judgments here. This is not a moral call. We are not trying to be sanctimonious. The creed of the show is knowing and doing. The purpose of knowing is to do. And so I've thought about this. My mother raised me as a single mother, and she did an exemplary work. I saw her shuttling between being a disciplinarian, a nurturer. When I was under the weather, she'd swing and wear her motherly role of nurturing. When I was being a brat, she'd swing and wear a disciplinarian jacket so that she would whoop me up. And it was very interesting to see. And it wasn't devoid of challenges. And I've thought about my life over the course of time and asked myself, how have I fared in terms of being the wholesome man I think myself to be? And where are my malevolence from things I picked up growing up, being raised by my mother alone? So that's the conversation I want us to have. Were you raised by a single dad, a single mom? What are some of the things you see as challenges that you accrued over the course of years because of your setup? Okay, so I've read extensively about this conversation from psychologists, and I'll share a lot of my own subjective experiences from these conversation as we go along. Again, make it as interactive as you can. Share with me some of your mind about these conversations so we see how we can grow and become better. Most kids, according to research from absent parent families, are left unable to form healthy relationships as adults. For one simple reason, you cannot grow beyond your point of reference. Modeling in my mind far supersedes mentorship. When you see things, then you think in your mind, I can become that. Obama writes in his book, The Audacity of Hope, that because of his father's intermittent visitations when they were living in Hawaii, he made a conscious effort and declared as a young boy that once he gets married, he's going to be more meaningfully present in his children's life. And I think he's done an exemplary work with that. So when your children grow up and they become adults, because of how you absented yourself, psychologically, they end up being as pathetic if they don't make an intentional work to be present in a meaningful way, in the way you ought to have been. It is much easier if they see you present, participating in sports day, in their upbringing, in a loving way, so that they know that the natural course of events of things is to emulate you. This is not to say that if one of the parents, supposing you started off as a family, dad, mom, and you've gotten kids, and you start seeing that one parent is very toxic because of their modeling. Maybe they're modeling very untoward behavior with alcohol, substance abuse, or God forbid, they're even sexually abusive. then it behooves you to live as you have, and this is not a judgment call again. So sometimes it's best that our parents are away from the kids if they are untoward than if they stayed around, because they're going to cause more harm than good. Okay? So what other way is it that your absence affects the child? Something to think about, so that if you're busy going to Juba looking for money and they're just like, they will grow. Ha, ha, ha. I grew. And you've never quite sat down with yourself and thought, how has this upbringing affected me? Again, according to research, children can have stress-related illnesses due to unresolved conflict of childhood. Did you know that? I read a very interesting study that children raised in absent parent homes, whether both parents are absent or one of them is absent, are even affected by things like stomach upset, and they lose their appetite because there is no continuity and permanence. That kids are so hell-bent on continuity and permanence that the routine is intermittent. So that there are days they go to school, there are days they eat their vegetables, there are days they don't, there are days they're cold, there are days they're loved. They grow up into becoming very avoidant adults. So it can actually manifest in a physical illness. I did not know that. I was just like, really? Does that explain why a lot of kids have a poor appetite? Because dad is never at home? Okay, something to think about. Parents who later demand or require assistance, be it emotionally or psychologically or physically or materially. You know, where your dad absented himself in 1992, and now because of this job advertisement that you featured on in the papers as a senior manager, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he records himself coughing. They're saying it's marasmus and you've abandoned me. And you're thinking to yourself, that word abandonment was introduced to the family by somebody and it wasn't me. You know? So then, if you plan to age and grow old and now depend on them in a meaningful way, maybe the question becomes, what are you putting in the ground as seeds that you will harvest? You know, many times we like to compare the seed harvest conversation to just farmers. But if you think about it, life is so funny. As older as I'm becoming, I'm learning that everything is a seed. Whatever you give yourself to gives back to you. There's a scripture that says, give and it shall be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together and running over. A lot of pastors have spoiled that and abused it with money. If you give 1,000, you'll get 10,000. If you give 50,000, that's crazy. The principle is not so much about giving the pastor money. If you give yourself to a craft, let's say I have musician friends, if you give yourself to hours upon hours of playing the guitar, one day at a concert, you string a chord and a note that will surprise you. I think it's on Sister Act, where this boy is singing, "Oh, happy day, oh, happy." You've seen that movie? And then somewhere it does that Mariah Carey thing of, you know that thing? And then Whoopi Goldberg turns in shock. So that best exemplifies giving, then it gives back to you. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, says to attain mastery, you need to give yourself to 10,000 hours in any discipline. So if you are like Picasso and you're painting, before you attain superfluous, exemplary levels of excellence, you need to give yourself 10,000 hours. I think 10,000 hours is 8 hours every day for a period of 12 years, or 10 hours every day for a period of 8 years. Can you imagine? Now, when you do that consistently, the thing you've given yourself to will give back to you. Another example, which is very Kenyanese, you remember Wangari Maathai. Wangari Maathai defended trees, and the world defended us to the point of winning the Nobel Peace Prize. I saw a video of Wangari Maathai in Japan, and I think Shanghai. And she was a big, big star. May God rest her soul in peace. She was a big star. The trees were so honorable that they defended her back, even when the Kenyan politicians were trying to massacre her while she was defending afforestation. You get the drift? So then, as a parent who is very absent, saying they will grow, they will grow. Their mom sends me pictures. I hope in your plan in the future, it doesn't include you needing any sort of help. And that should not motivate you to do right because you'll need help. Do right anyway. Nothing damages a person's self concept more than neglect. Think about it. I saw something very interesting the other day. These social scientists said that people should boil rice and put in three different containers. One container had hate, another container had loving words that you tell to the rice, and then the third container had neglect. And so some lady went through with the experiment. So what she did was every morning where she'd labeled love on the container of rice, she'd say, "Oh, rice, you're so beautiful, my basmati, so crisp. Umeachana moja kwa moja. You are one rice. You're the best rice to have happened to this house." And then she turned to the label that was labeled as hate, and she'd say the meanest thing to that container. And then the third label, she just not even look at it. She'd just be like, 2 weeks passed. This is a true experiment. You should find it somewhere on the internet. When she opened the neglect rice, it was moldy, some pinkish, very sticky, and smelly. When she opened the hate rice, the container that was labeled as hate, it was the most yuckiest with the thickest, hardest mold. And guess what happened when she opened the love container? Your guess is as good as mine. The rice was crisp, didn't smell, wasn't rotten. So the point I'm trying to make is words, while not palpable, while you can't touch them, have such adverse effects just as actionable things. They say is it psychology or neuroscientists? Either or. They say that if you are heartbroken, let's say your husband has left you, or your wife has left you, or your girlfriend has dumped you, the pain in your heart is just as palpably real as breaking your leg. They even say it's more painful to your heart than breaking your leg. So you see the way you are walking with crutches like that. That pain in your heart is similar and worse than breaking your physical leg. So the point is, nothing thrives on neglect. Nothing. Unless your goal is to neglect your children, then you're doing amazing. But if you're hoping that somehow by the sheer fact that you're a father who ejaculated in their mother and they look for you and embrace you, then you have another thing coming. Okay? The best kind of parents are not the perfect ones. That's not what I'm saying. They invest consistent love and time in the relationship with their children. I remember when I was growing up, one of my most fond memories of my mother, one time she came from work and she said, I used to hate secondhand things. So my mother would buy me, I don't know if they're still there, Deacons, and she'd buy me safari boots. So I had a bunch of sets of safari boots and she'd bring them in boxes. So I would unwrap, there was no Instagram then. If there were, I would have probably unwrapped my gift. Check you, come with me as I unwrap my safari boots. So I had my safari boots, and my mother, this one time, my mother was such a strict disciplinarian. This one time, I could count the number of times my mom and I hung out, just the two of us. One time she came to my school late when I was in high school at 8 p.m. after all the parents had gone, but she came. And then this one time that I solely remember, she came back from work early at around 11 o'clock. And I thought we were going to do general cleaning as we were doing. And no. That's not what she came for. She said, Eric, go shower, wear your nice jeans, and put on your safari boots. We're going somewhere. So it was just me and her. And you know what we did? We went to CBD, had some very nice fries and sausages and a soda. And then we were just sitting. We didn't say anything. We sat there, ate, and then she said, you're full. Okay. Then we went to a supermarket, did shopping for the family, and went back home. That is one of the most wonderful memories I hold dear of my mom's as a grown adult with beards. And so I understood good and early that children spell LOVE as TIME. Okay? So I don't know what the goal then becomes. And I think in one of the tentative conversations, we should have a conversation around what are the roles of a parent? Because I see as if we've lost the plot. I meet a lot of women and men saying, hey, Mazi, this year I just need to get a child. I have to knock a chick page, man. Oh, I have to get a child. Oh, I have to get a child. And I've had a lot of my intimate friends tell me, Eric, you just need to get a child. Huh? And then they can just grow with the mother. They just grow with the mother. Yeah, they just grow. They grow with the mother. One day you just come back when they're 8, 10, you're like, hey, my son or daughter. And then you continue. But is that really wise? Is that really wise to do? How much of that time will you really have caught on? So maybe a question we need to ask ourselves deeply, what are the roles of a father in a child's life? What are the roles of a husband in a woman's life? What are the roles of a partner in your partner's life? And most certainly, how do you want your child to remember you in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, and more when you're gone? What are the imprints you're leaving in your child so that when they get to a place of becoming a father or a mother, they would say, my dad taught me this? Will they say, like me, about my mother, that she spared time, took me for lunch, and we went shopping? And by the way, one of the things my mother used to say when I became an adult is that when you go out with Eric to a restaurant, just order what he's ordering. That one lunch we had with her paid back 1,000 times lunches. She'd call me randomly and say, I'm so bored in the house. Come pick me my son and take me, we try Chinese. And I did. Because when she had the upper hand, she was present in a very meaningful way. Okay? So something to think about. Low self-esteem is another thing your kids suffer, which they will never tell you because you are not there, Mr. Man. You're not there. You're like, they'll grow. They are growing with their mother or with their father, they're growing. A lack of parental guidance and involvement has been found to contribute largely to low self-esteem. Most young ladies have never had their dad speak, their dad think, their father's advisement. So they do these interesting clandestine activities. Where do you think they get the urge from? A random guy says, baby, I can buy you a phone. A guy was born hundreds of years earlier. And then she just really is yearning for the feel of a man, not sexually even, just guidance, because we're human beings. And then now you're like, this chick is very, very vile. She's not. You are absent. You are absent. Okay? So low self-esteem is another thing that they suffer. Emotional regulation problems. Have you seen people who hoot off? You say something like, Pitia Ipa, and they're like, where should I pass? Why? Who are you to tell me that? They have a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of struggles that they've not processed. Therapy is expensive. They're hooting off, fighting people. I read a report a couple of years ago that up to 75%, it should be more now, up to 75% of males incarcerated in American prisons all come from single-parent homes. Can you imagine? I mean, think about it. It's a no-brainer. If I'm a single mother and I have to provide for my son and a daughter and another child, my resources are strained. So I'm most of the time working 2, 3 jobs. Who is going to do the homework? Who is going to guide them and counsel them? And then because these kids want attention, because they feel like they've been neglected, they do crazy things. Substance abuse, delinquency behaviors, fiddling with sex early, unwanted pregnancy, all of that stuff. So emotional regulation problems occur because a lot of these kids have their emotions all over the place, which leads to withdrawals, aggressions, and impulsive behaviors, including punching a random cop in the streets just for effect and fun. I need someone to chase me because my father was absent. I'm serious. Risk-taking behaviors. Have you ever sat down and thought, what was happening to you? Were you not thinking? Where was your head when you went to the supermarket and started shoplifting? Why would you take so much alcohol? So studies suggest that a link between parental absence and increased risk of unhealthy coping mechanisms is a factor. Can you imagine all of that? Then social difficulties. Children may have trouble interacting with their fellow children because you are absent. One of my friends once told me a sad story. Her son was asked in school. No, her son wasn't asked. A teacher asked, what does your father do? And kids were shooting their hands up. And her son was a brilliant boy, an A student. And the teacher called her later and said, he burst out crying and ran out of class. So it's possible that this question triggered the boy. And then when they later investigated and said, why did you act like that? He said, maybe I'm not good enough. Why did he leave me? Why did he abandon me? How come he's never looked for me? Did he die? How come nobody talks about him? Can you imagine? Maybe I'm not good enough because me, I'm performing really well in school and I see fellow D students who the fathers bring them to school. So what's with me? Is it my height? Is it my jaws? Is my teeth funny? Is it my eyes? So you might not be thinking about all these things, but they actually contribute to your child's social difficulties. Those people who are painfully shy, they can barely stand to speak. Nobody ever affirmed them, especially if it's a boy. Academic struggles. Oh my goodness. I could go on and go on and on and on and on and on. It is said from research, children with absent parents may face challenges with academia, okay? Performance, including things like lower test grades, lack of concentration, their attention span is off. Maybe they're busy thinking about you when you're in Laikipia, not talking to them. So they will not get the algebra. So something to think about. Every decision is tied to a consequence. It probably behooves us to make quality decisions, especially when it pertains to another human life. So before you tighten the noose and say, there's no way that stupid man is going to see my child, yet he's yearning to. And before you say, me, I just want to make a chick pregnant. Me, I just want to make a chick pregnant. Just pregnant, give her the knee, and then disappear. Maybe you need to think again. Because again, according to science, your presence counts for so much more than your ego.